Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to be looking at expanding out the terrain that we've already built, and we're going to start using the materials that we can build inside of Unreal to allow us to customize this more specifically for having multiple textures and materials on the same terrain. So let's start off by going into our assets folder, and we're going to go to our materials section. We're just going to create a new material. We're going to call this M_landscape blend. And of course, if you have multiples of these, you're going to want to find more distinct naming conventions. Inside of this, I'm going to have my material editor, and I'm going to want to grab a few textures to lead us into the different types of designs that we have. But we're going to create a placeholder right now just to show the process. So I'm going to use a base color to represent the landscape. So I'm just going to pull a 3 vector by holding 3 and clicking here and plugging that into base color. We're just going to choose a color that is currently not in the scene, the cyan. And I'm going to take this and I'm going to go apply it to my terrain, my landscape over here. So when I scroll down, I get to the material. And then if I have search, we do blend. So I have the right material set. So we can see that the material is working properly. If I want to be able to paint, I need to be able to set up something that will have multiple materials available within the single material that's being applied. So I'm going to want to blend multiple materials together. I'm going to use a blend node. So if we choose the landscape layer blend node here, I can plug this into my base color. And what I need to do is when I have this node selected, I need to add multiple layers. So let's start with 3 layers. We'll say grass, rock, and sand. All right. So with these set up, I'm going to duplicate these values over here. We're just going to have green for grass. We'll do a gray for rock. And then we'll do like a yellow-orange for sand. All right. So with these set up, I'm just going to plug in the diffuse into this to get our point across. So this is a landscape blend mode, and right now we're going to be mixing using weight blending. So this is going to allow us to paint onto the terrain. So if I want to use this, you'll see that everything is gray by default because I haven't actually applied this material in the way that it wants to be applied. I need to switch back to my landscape mode. And I'm going to switch over to my paint tab. And under the paint tab, you'll see it tells me there's no target layers assigned to this. So what I want to do is I want to add 3 layers. And we're just going to name those grass, rock, and you can see it's starting to populate already with the right colors, and sand. So it's got those 3 colors already, and it's looking to paint this information into the world when I go to paint over this, but it needs to have a destination for where I paint that information to. If you think of the terrain, the landscape here, as a representation of a 2-dimensional grayscale map, where the colors that are brighter are closer to the top of the range, and the colors that are darker are closer to the lower end of the range, then you can also consider that the mapping of these different colors can be put in the same place, where we have more intense representation of grass when its map is a brighter, whiter color, and less representation when it's a darker color. And so we need to create a layer to be able to draw into these. So since there isn't a layer already, we're going to click this little plus sign over here, create layer info. And it wants to put it inside of a terrain shared assets under the levels folder. We're going to go ahead and do that and just say grass level info. And then I'll do the same thing for my rock and again for my sand. So with these things set up, now I can choose grass. And if I want, I can go and paint, and you'll see it'll update the details of that quadrant when I go to first paint. If I switch over to the rock, that hasn't been initialized yet. And so I can make this a rocky patch in the middle of all this. I can go back to my grass layer and paint the grass in. And of course, if I have smooth or rough edges, then that'll blend better or worse. And then maybe I have a kind of a sand pit over here. And as I go to paint, that gets applied directly. If I go to paint over this, it'll paint the yellow on top of the green, but it's not overwriting it completely because the green's still coming through to some extent. If I want to get rid of that, I can go to the grass layer, hold down shift and drag, and that will erase that layer. So you have the ability to draw actively and negatively, positively and negatively into the layer with click and shift click. So with these in place, I might want to get some more complex materials going. So I'm going to switch back over to my material. We go back to my assets and materials. For our blend mode here, I want to get a couple textures to help define the grass, the rock, and the sand a little bit more than just by color definition. So I'm going to go down and I'm going to look for textures under some of these other asset kits that I've gotten. So I added a desert material. So if we find some textures in here, I can grab, I want to grab a set that goes together. So you see these have ambient, base color, height map, normal map, and roughness. So 5 that go along with each. So I'll pick 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is for the sand. And I'm just going to bring these down here, sort the details out in a little bit. For the rock, I'm going to choose the snow rock. We have a couple different options here. And we have base color, metallic, normal, roughness. So they don't have as many options, but we'll grab a collection here. And then for the grass, I'll choose the mossy rock. And we have a few different options. You'll see that these ones are packed. So I have the AO, the R, the MD. So this is ambient occlusion, roughness, metallic, and displacement or offset, a vertical offset. So I can either grab the individual maps, or I can grab this combined map with the color and the normal, and this should be good. I think this one will work for us, so I'm going to go ahead and pull these up here. So these individual textures, I could take them and do a blend per each one of these and get them set up to join together, where I could have, here's my diffuse blend where I have the color for this coming over, and then I have the color for this one coming over. Which one of these was? I think this one was the default. If I look over here, base color. If I plug these in here instead of my 3 vectors and I apply and save, then you can see that the grass is not as grassy as I wanted it to be, but the rocks are in place and the desert sand is being desert sand. So the materials are a little rough right now, but if I wanted to, I could come back and then duplicate this process for each one of these sets. But I actually have a better way that I could go about doing this. So if I disconnect these, I can take my landscape blend over here and I can just say to use material attributes. And then from this, I can just say, set up material attributes. So this is going to be make material attributes. So I can basically take all those values that I would have, and then I would set those up to be the grass layer. And I'll just duplicate this throughout. And so I can take all the individual pieces, construct them on their own, and only need to have one blend layer then that gets plugged into this overall material. So just to set this up, I'm going to step away for a second, and when I come back, it'll all be hooked up. All right, we're back. And so what we have here is all of the textures have now been hooked up to our material attribute list. And those are going to be plugged into our landscape, which is then going to be plugged into the blend material. So with this, I just had the, if you were into these packed materials, it's, you can see right here, AORMD, that's ambient occlusion, roughness, metallic, and displacement. So if I take the R, this is actually going to be the packed red channel is going to hold the packed grayscale version of our ambient occlusion, and then green is going to hold on to the roughness, and then the metallic, and then the alpha channel holds the displacement. So it's just a way of optimizing packing materials. When you have a lot of grayscale materials, no reason to have 3 channels for each one that's only using 1 channel. So with this in place, I should be able to click apply, save, and then I'll see this material. You can see there's some issues in the world because there's some things that have not been initialized. So trying to apply reflections and normals and things like that. So this is why it's a good idea when you have the landscape tool open, when you go to paint, if you create a very large brush, you have your default material, and you just paint the whole thing over to get a baseline so that everything looks like a surface that's been covered, and then you can go back and apply the versions that are different for whatever materials you're painting or blending in together. And so as you go, this gives you the opportunity to consider that the world can be customized if you place objects inside of the world and then you wanted to draw a route around them. You could have the materials placed and be mindful of the exact static mesh that you have here and draw a path specifically around the house, or cut the stones just by the river and things like that without having to place static meshes. You can get the train to kind of do a lot of the work for you. So as you go in, just be mindful the different modes that you have available to you. There's definitely more complicated things you could do with the materials to get them to be considerate of each other's height. We were only looking at an alpha blend here. If I went back to the material, we could set this up to, instead of using weight blends, if we wanted to use an alpha, it would, or displacement, we would have the height here. And so it would base the displacement off of the height that we'd get out of this. So if we wanted to take, for example, the blue from the normal, that might get us a height set that would then say at particular heights be more or less transparent to the materials that are around you. So play with it, explore it, do some more research as you discover the needs that your project has, and go out and keep building.